Hello, friends. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to
It's,
this fourth session of the Global Interfaith Prayer for Healing.
it's a joy to be with you again, and we pray that you are staying healthy and well and safe. We are going to move into our time together here in just a moment, but we want to start with sharing about who we are. My name is Reverend Cynthia Bricks.
And I am Dr. William Keepin.
And we are the co-directors of the Satyana Institute. We have two program areas, this one called Dawn of Interspirituality, where we become friends with people across the religious and spiritual traditions, bridging the divides, if you will. And then we have a program called Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, where we are working with people across the genders, and in particular, people who identify as male and female, to bridge the differences there in relationship with one another.
And we are also the ministers at the Unity Center of Awakening in Vancouver, Canada.
So we welcome you here and now. As many of you know, because you've been on this program with us before, we will have a webinar time right now for the first hour with our teachers and presenters. And then the second half will move into a time with breakout sessions with our teachers and presenters, and then engagement with each other in the community. So we hope it will be a dynamic and enjoyable, enhanced time for you. So just a few technical things. One is that if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, then you'll know you can look or move your cursor to the bottom. Usually it's on the bottom of your Zoom page, and there's a little chat box. And you can click on that, and that's a way for you to communicate with everyone in this community, everyone that's watching, and full issues, or you can also post comments and reflections, say hello to each other. And so whatever needs to happen there in chat can happen. We also want to welcome our YouTube live audience, and there's also a chat area in that in your modality as well, and our staff is there to help you as well. We want to thank our staff who are so essential to us right now. They're doing all the back end, and you'll meet them, or most of them, in the breakout sessions as well. Garrett Evans, Jennifer Mackey, Todd Mackey, Antonia Porter, Irina Kircharenko, Laura Williams, Rory McAtee, Sylvia Araya, who's our interpreter, and our music that you enjoyed this morning or this day as you came into the session is from Nick Patton, who lives in South Africa. Our sponsors today are the Satyana Institute, Unity of Vancouver, Banyan Books, and Still Point at Breckenridge. Still Point at Breckside.
Yeah.
And now we'll just move into a few comments. Will's going to open us up with some opening statements and before we hear from our presenters.
So the purpose of this Global Interfaith Prayer Gathering is simply to come together in prayer across the religious and spiritual and wisdom traditions of the world. So we are bringing different spiritual leaders together here in this online gathering. And as we've said, since we are all, or most of us, are sequestered in our homes, so the doors to our outer life are closed, we can now come together and open the doors to our inner life through our hearts and come together and connect in this way. And this is essential now because we as a human family are in this crisis together. And it's a time when we are called to really rebirth our entire human civilization. We have demonstrated that we can change the outer structures of our society within a few weeks. It's remarkable how we have shut down many of the engines and functions of the outer normal social structures of our lives. And we have also been collaborating as a human family across wide differences of politics and ideology and culture. So all of these are auspicious signs that the human family can continue this collaboration and, in a certain sense, rebirth ourselves. And this is really the call of this time, is to rebirth, to really heal and give birth to a new human civilization that is in harmony with one another and in harmony with the earth. So this whole prayer series is in service of that. This week is in North America. This coming Sunday is Mother's Day. And so in honor of the feminine and the Divine Mother, we just wanted to speak to the fact that across the religions of the world, the feminine has often been repressed in various ways. And part of the healing and part of the spiritual healing of humanity is to reclaim the divine feminine and also to heal our relationship with the body of the feminine. The cosmos is, in a certain sense, the body of the Divine Mother. And as we know in our sacred planetary home, we as a human civilization have violated and plundered the earth and the body of the earth in many ways. So part of our call now is to heal this relationship with our sacred planetary home, and also to heal this relationship with the divine feminine and really invite her healing powers, if you will. In the Bible, for example, at the beginning, Genesis chapter 1, I think 26, 27, it says very specifically, God says, let us create humanity in our image after our likeness. And God created them male and female. So this is a very explicit reference using the plural pronoun. God essentially identifies as androgynous right there at the beginning of the Bible. This kind of gets lost a little later, as you may have noticed. But it's a very significant fact, and we've read extensively on it. And there is a whole philosophical and mystical tradition that takes this statement literally. We also see it in the other Eastern religions, of course, Buddhism and Hinduism, and really across all of the traditions, the feminine aspect of the divine. So I want to just read one short reading. This comes from the great mystic Sri Aurobindo from India, one of the greatest sages of the 20th century. And he wrote a very beautiful little book called The Mother, which is really all about the divine feminine. And what he says is that all of existence is the play of the Divine Mother with the Supreme. All is her manifestation of the mysteries of the eternal, the miracles of the infinite. And the Divine Mother's sacrifice, excuse me 1 second. All the scenes of the earth play have been like a drama, arranged and planned and staged by the Divine Mother with the cosmic gods, with herself as a veiled actor. And in her great and deep love for her children, she has consented to put on this cloak of obscurity, take upon herself the pangs and sorrows of the creation. And thus alone could it be lifted to the light and the joy and truth and eternal life. And so this is, and then he finally gives a cue to how to relate to her. He says, if you follow your mind will not recognize the Divine Mother, even when she is manifest before you. Follow your soul and not your mind. Your soul that answers to the truth, not your mind that leaps at appearances. Trust the divine power, and she will free the godlike elements in you and shape everything into an expression of divine nature. And so that is our prayer now, that we trust our souls and we allow the divine both the Divine Mother and the Divine Masculine, the Father and Mother aspects of God, to make everything an expression of our divine nature and create a new heaven and a new earth. May it be so.
May it be so. So we would like to invite our presenters and teachers to offer a very short invocation to bring your voices in. And will begin, and then we'll call each of your names for your invocation to begin us off in this time together.
So, Hari Pat, in the name of the One who is beyond all names, yet comes by whatever name we invoke, we invite these invocations forward. And I'll begin with Alejandra.
Beloved, make us an instrument of your love, your peace, and your wisdom.
And Seifu Singh Molares.
Gate, gate, parasam gate, bodhisvaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond.
And Safira.
God is most glorious. Alawapa.
And Kurt Johnson.
Using the invocation of the World Peace Prayer Society, may peace and healing prevail on earth.
And Rabbi Silvina.
Shalom. El na refanala. Please God, heal us.
And Reverend Pat Davies.
Infinite divine intelligence operates in, through, and as each of us.
So let us move into a couple moments of silent prayer to open the inner doors of our hearts.
We'll ring the bell at the end of the silence, and then we'll have a song, a devotional song original from Safira.
This is a prayer from the Baha'i writings for protection. I have risen this morning by thy grace, O my God, and left my home, trusting wholly in thee, and committing myself to thy care. Send down then upon me, out of the heaven of thy mercy, a blessing from thy side, and enable me to return home in safety, even as thou didst enable me to set out under thy protection, with my thoughts fixed steadfastly upon thee. There is none other God but thee, one the incomparable, the all-knowing, the all-wise, the all-knowing, the all-wise.
Thank you, Sapphira.
Thank you, Sapphira. Beautiful invocation.
So as we move into our time together, all of us who are here on the panel of presenters and teachers, and all who are in this community, we just invite you to hold the silent prayer in your heart as you move through this time in your own home or in your shelter in place, as we move together through this time on the Zoom call. And hold that silent prayer for all who cannot be with us, all who don't have a safe place to be right now, all who are suffering either with the illness or other ways of suffering, all the essential workers, all the peoples and beings of this earth and the earth herself. Just hold that silent prayer for healing and reconciliation across all the divisions. And now we will begin with a few words from each of our presenters and teachers. You'll each have 3 minutes. We'll do a little introduction for each of you, and then you'll have 3 minutes, and at the 3-minute mark, we'll ring the bell. So that's your cue for bringing it to closure, if you haven't already.
So we'd like to begin by welcoming Alejandra Warden. Alejandra is an inner spiritual leader from Argentina and California, and the founder of Essential Oneness. She's a widely acclaimed teacher of feminine spiritual wisdom and author of the book El Llamado de mi Corazón, The Call of My Heart. Welcome, Alejandra.
Thank you. T.S. Eliot said, "We have the experience but miss the meaning." And my prayer is that this is not so, because in the midst of so much suffering, confusion, and fear, there is the risk that we might miss the meaning we are experiencing today. This virus is teaching us a few things, among them about our interconnection. The way it spreads, the way we are infecting each other, show us that our interconnection goes beyond what our eyes can see. But not only the virus infects us. Our actions, our words, and even our emotions and our thoughts also have this power. And because our interconnection does not discriminate, it actually affects us all. We have have learned that there is a way to prevent the infection by cleaning and caring for our bodies and our homes. Because we are interconnected, when we do this, we are actually not only care of ourselves, but we are protecting others. And in the same way, it is really important to clean the negativity from our hearts and our minds, to prevent from infecting ourselves and infecting those. Now, if this is the effect that cleaning has on us, let's imagine for a moment what it would be if we clean, if we care for the earth, our mother and home. Look what the virus, a few days of the virus have done. The air is cleaner, the sky is bluer, nature is happy. The virus, the earth, life are trying to tell us something. They are trying to connect with us. And this knowing of interconnection and the unveiling of meaning have always belonged to the wisdom of the feminine. And today, the virus, this strong experience is allowing us to live for once and for all our sense of separation and of isolation, and embrace and be born in full consciousness to our awareness of our oneness. But as neglectfulness and self-absorption impede us from seeing what is beyond what our personal desires and wishes are, my prayer today is that we put Mother Earth and the whole of humanity and the whole of nature in our hearts, and that we listen and that we embrace them and we fill them with love.
Thank you, Alejandra.
Beautiful, Alejandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from the Reverend Seifu Singh Molaras. Reverend Seifu is a Zen Buddhist priest and executive director of Spiritual Directors International, which is a blossoming organization under his leadership. He was formerly a Microsoft executive and director of the Compassionate Action Network. Welcome, Reverend Seifu. Blessings to you and welcome to this time.
Thank you. And good day to all of you. So I wanted to speak a little bit about darkness, blackness, despair. The times that we are in are difficult times, challenging, where we confront our mortality with an immediacy that is usually not as apparent to most of us. There's a lot of fear out there. We have a very real health crisis, a pandemic, but we also have a pandemic of fear. And as I speak about these things, it's usually darkness in this sense is associated with negative emotions, negative impressions. And what I wanted to share with you today is that darkness is actually an invitation. That darkness is the soil from which true spiritual insight arises, true spiritual growth arises. And, this has been spoken about in so many of the world's religions and so many spiritual paths and traditions. The great night of the soul, swimming in darkness, losing yourself before you find yourself anew. And so these times of tremendous challenge and tremendous loneliness for so many people, and despair and loss of jobs and hospitals and death and the death of loved ones and dear ones for all of us is actually a tremendous invitation to dig deep and combust and compost in that dark soil, so that the flower of spiritual awakening, whatever it looks like for each of us, and it's always different for every person on the planet, every living being, can arise. And it arises from that suffering, from that impermanence, from that groundlessness, which is actually and paradoxically very grounding. So I share the invitation with all of you today to mine and till the darkness and go deep within, so that we can arise into spiritual maturity. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Seifu.
Thank you, Seifu, for those important words of wisdom. Thank you. And we now invite Rabbi Sylvina Cheman. She is a rabbi with Temple Beth El Synagogue, the first liberal synagogue in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Rabbi Cheman is author of 3 books on crucial human rights issues, and she is a tireless activist and advocate for interfaith dialogue and harmony.
Welcome,
Rabbi
Rabbi.
Cheman.
Good day to all of you. Shalom lekulchem. The Jewish tradition is founded on the fulfillment of commandments, and all of them focus on a single objective, tikkun olam, to repair the world. Prayer, meditation are instruments to get there, and so are our acts of solidarity and social justice, as well as political actions towards equity and economies of communion, as well as our commitment to the planet and to our bodies, which are part of it even when we sometimes deny it, as well as enjoyment, joy, stillness. The inequalities that we built for ourselves today have been erased, and we are united, unfortunately, by fear and disease. Today is the opportunity to take advantage of this human network that unites us and sustains us like never before, to transform it into the support of a repaired humanity, healed, with equal opportunities for all and with room for all, without exception. Let us pray together for all those who are sick, for all those who are afraid and need healing of spirit. Let us pray for the healing of this world that is giving us a new opportunity. In Judaism, when we gather to pray, we utter this prayer, invoking the one who gave strength and blessing to our ancestors to send us complete healing. I invite you to close your eyes and place in your hearts the names and faces of all those who want to receive this blessing. Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Amen indeed. Thank you for that beautiful prayer.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Muchas gracias.
And now we'll introduce Dr. Kurt Johnson, who is a global leader in interfaith spirituality and a consultant to the United Nations. He's a former monk and also an entomologist and author of 200 articles and 7 books, including The Coming Interspiritual Age. Welcome, Dr. Kurt Johnson.
Oh, so thank you very much. So as you know, these events in history are called black swan events. They come out of nowhere and we don't know where they're going to land. We don't know if they're going to land on our good side or on our bad side. And everything depends on our behavior. Now, some of you know that last November, I spent the month at His Holiness the Dalai Lama's home in Dharamshala, India. And he was saying the same thing, you know, everything depends on the future of human behavior and how we behave. And I was actually there to be talking with him about where the science is today on human behavior and on the direction of evolution. And the person I was there with is the author of this book, Does Altruism Exist? Does Goodness Exist? Culture, Genes, and the Welfare of Others. And the reason it's so relevant to this discussion is that viruses are really genes. They're a strand of DNA or RNA, and what they do is they come into our body and they give us bad information. And it's information to behave in a way that's not to the welfare of ourselves and to others. Now, this book was actually the first in a series by Yale Templeton on the foundational questions of science. And what's important about it in this time is that it showed that what we understand about evolution today is that the understanding of survival of the fittest to be all about competition is only true at the most primitive levels of nature, and certainly not true in human cultures and in sentient and conscious beings. Nature actually chooses at the level of groups and at the level of cultural evolution, it changes the best cooperator. Now, what that means is that not that survival of the fittest isn't true, but what it means is that the definition of fitness changes in human beings from the best competitor to the best cooperator. Now, the good news for that is when it comes to a black swan event like the pandemic, nature is on our side. Actually, the processes of evolution are on our side. Nature will choose what is the best adaptive thing for the whole and for the species. So what's important is the examples that we set and the message that we give, because that's what puts the choices out into the marketplace. So all of us in this time, what's so important now, like with events like this and many things that many of us are doing, is that we put out the good news, the inspiring news, the hopeful news, and the options for the good behavior, because actually nature will choose those and human nature will choose those. So the good news now is that actually evolutionary principles are on our side. They're on the side of altruism and on the side of the message of the great wisdom traditions. So this is hopefully good news for everyone. And so just keep up that good work, setting the best examples and giving the best options for human choices. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank-
Dr. Johnson.
Thank you for that beautiful message, Kurt, and may we all be the best cooperators in this time.
Blessings to you.
So we now will hear from Safira Rameshvar, who is with the Baha'i International Office at the United Nations in New York. And Safira represents the Baha'i faith at the United Nations. She is a leader for gender equality and youth empowerment, and she is an executive on the UN NGO Committee on the Status of Women. Welcome, Safira.
Welcome, Safira.
Thank you so much for creating this space and convening us together today. I wanted to just start by saying a couple of words about the uniqueness of this moment. As humanity is kind of faced with this unprecedented global pandemic. And we all feel this great concern for the well-being of humanity, especially for those who are most vulnerable. But seldom has it been more evident that society's collective strength is dependent on the unity that it can manifest in action, from the international stage to the grassroots. And so I also wanted to offer my gratitude for the support many communities, networks, religious groups, such as this one, that have offered towards the essential efforts being made to protect the health, the well-being of all, and really connecting us in ways that we haven't been connected in the past. And I wanted to highlight that this moment is not a moment of hopelessness. Opportunities unbounded present themselves to demonstrate the nobility of the human spirit and to find creative ways to express it. The world stands more and more in need of the hope and the strength of spirit that faith imparts. So let us then with confidence affirm that however difficult matters are at present, and however close to the limits of their endurance some sections of society will be brought, humanity will ultimately pass through this ordeal and will emerge on the other side with a greater insight and with a deeper appreciation of its inherent oneness and interdependence. In terms of the role that faith communities and people of faith can play at this time, I really feel that faith communities have a key role to play in upholding the role of scientific inquiry, reinforcing the advice of capable public health authorities, countering rumor, countering misinformation. And they can also be central in extending our concern beyond individual well-being to that of the entire human family, as all of us are united in this common experience. So may this heightened consciousness of our oneness and interconnection motivate us to explore how the present moment can be a time characterized not by fear, but by solidarity, respect, and ever strengthening bonds of friendship. And I wanted to just share a short quote from the Universal House of Justice, which is the international governing body of the Baha'i world, which was sent to the Baha'i community, the worldwide Baha'i community, around a month ago in light of COVID-19. And it articulates the prayer that they have offered for humanity at this time, and that we're all offering for humanity at this time. We pray earnestly for the Almighty to bestow upon you assurance, stamina, and staunch spirits. May your minds be ever bent upon the needs of the communities to which you belong, the condition of the societies in which you live, and the welfare of the entire family of humanity, to whom you are all brothers and sisters. And in your quiet moments, when no course of action other than prayer seems possible, then we invite you to add your supplications to our own and ardently pray for the relief of suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Safira.
Thank you, Safira, for
Blessings
that
to
beautiful
you.
message and prayer.
Now we welcome the Reverend Pat Davies, who is a senior minister at the Center for Spiritual Living in Kamloops, BC, Canada, British Columbia. She is a leader in interfaith collaboration and a multi-faith chaplain at Thompson Rivers University. Welcome, Reverend Davies.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to participate in this global event. I believe there is a power for good in the universe, and that I can use it, that you can use it, that we all can use it. I believe that this spirit or God is an intelligence operating in through all of life, never separate from anyone or anything. Through study and spiritual practice, I have come to understand our oneness with this indwelling presence and with each other. My faith is not a revelation of any particular individual or any one faith tradition, but more a correlation of the most empowering truths that I have found in all religions and in the discoveries of science. I believe there is an invisible force, law, and intelligence governing everything in the universe. I believe as individuals, there resides within all of us a divine spark that calls us to discover our immediate relationship to that power and to become partners or co-creators in all of our activities. The particular style of new thought that I follow is called religious science. It's based upon the ideas of Dr. Ernest Holmes, which he wrote in a book in 1926 called The Science of Mind. The ideas that he presented are not new. In fact, there are many influences in the formation of religious science. He studied the world's great religions and philosophy, scriptures from the Bible to the Quran, and the best of science, the best that science had to offer back in the early 21st century. He read the works of Emerson and Thoreau and studied mystics, but most importantly, followed his own intuition. Today, the Centers for Spiritual Living, as the organization is now called, has brought all of these ideas to a more contemporary place. The Centers for Spiritual Living holds a vision of a world that works for everyone. And the purpose is to awaken humanity, all of humanity, to its spiritual magnificence. And our mission is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. So I'd like to invite you to explore with me a little bit later a very practical spiritual way to approach what is happening at this time. And this approach is applicable not only for this time, but for all times in our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Davies.
Thank you very much.
Welcome and
Davies.
blessings to you. Thank you to everyone, all the teachers and panelists and presenters. And now we are going to move into a time of a panel discussion just for a few moments or a few minutes.
So we would like to invite all of the panelists to unmute yourselves. And we would like to put forward just this question in this time, in this unprecedented time of the coronavirus crisis. What is our highest calling individually and as a global human family? And given that most of us are quarantined in our homes, what practices, prayers, and actions are most essential, most skillful now? And as religious leaders, how can we set aside our differences and engage this conference as a profound and rare opportunity to bring our various spiritual communities together in oneness and collaborate to manifest the divine promise that's been proclaimed in different ways across all of the scriptures for a new civilization. Corona means crown. How can this unique time be transformed into a crowning moment for humanity to heal our relationships across gender, religion, race, and class, and with the earth, so that we can finally establish genuine beloved community here and now on earth? So it's really an open-ended exploration. Will take maybe 10 minutes or so. So please share the space, and the circle is open.
Okay. Shall I begin?
Please,
Sure.
that's wonderful.
As a religious leader of a congregation, I can share with you my experience. Isolation makes the people feel that they are alone, and perhaps one of the functions of being part of a community is to create spaces of collectiveness, of gathering, of being together, of prayers, studying together, the sensation that we are all one, even we are isolated. And I think that this is one of the functions of religion, as Safira was saying about what is the function of being a religious person or religions nowadays in these times. And I think that is to keep very carefully the bonds among the people, to be present in the houses of the people, to propose to be together for many aspects, for many reasons. And this is one of the things that I discovered through the pandemic, that there are many ways of creating togetherness.
Thank you. Yes, Pat.
I just want to bring into the space the reminder, right, that we're all very well aware of these days, is that we're spending most of our time in our heads. We're spending most of our times thinking about what's going on. And sometimes, I don't know about for you, but sometimes for me, being in the company of my own thoughts can often lead me to a spiral, right? And I have a choice. One of the wonderful things about being a human being is that I have free will and I have the power of choice. So I can choose for that spiral to either spin upward or downward. So I would invite everyone to use this time to really use their thinking to change their lives.
Thank you, Pat.
Who else wants to speak about what's on your heart?
Can I jump in?
Please.
Yeah.
Yes, Safira.
I wanted to speak to this question that you raised about the highest calling of the individual and the global human family. And something that I'm seeing at this time is a real strengthening in the spiritual and devotional character of our inner life, when we can no longer be in our congregations in person, in houses of worship, but that we're still able to pray in our homes with our families, in some cases to pray with others online, or in certain parts of the world over the radio, but that somehow being able to hold each other in prayer and strengthening this devotional character and connection with God has also allowed for a spiritual consciousness to come to the fore, that these spiritual qualities of confidence, tranquility, love for humanity, this kind of spirit of collective worship that we may be in a time of isolation right now, but we're really connected with others in this common endeavor. that has also led to, I feel, an opportunity to have much more elevated conversations with one another too, where usually we're quite busy and distracted with our lives, but coronavirus and this experience that, you know, is really unprecedented in the living memory of humanity right now. It's opened up a way to speak to what is really important to us as spiritual beings navigating this material plane. And through an elevated conversation, opportunities open to find creative ways to be of service to one another, to reach out to those around us, neighbors, colleagues, networks, in safe ways and in creative ways to help one another.
Thank you, Safira. And Seifu, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yes, absolutely. So lots of silver linings in these times. And one is, if you're an introvert, you know, like I am, it's a wonderful opportunity for contemplation and meditation, prayer, however you all do it. But it's an invitation to all of us, whether we're introverted or extroverted, to really to contemplate and ponder our own depths, if you will. It's also an invitation to new forms of engagement. You know, we've seen an event like this and many others happening online, and people actually communicating across the globe, across nations and cultures in really unprecedented ways. That's a beautiful silver lining. And I would say what we're experiencing in our community, and what I can see happening very broadly, is this community engagement and the need for communication and companionship. You know, the need to be together. We make each other, we lift each other up as we engage in dialogue. We lift each other up as we honor each other's spiritual paths. We elevate each other. So this is a wonderful opportunity for contemplation, creative engagement, and companionship to lift each other up.
Thank you, Seifu.
Indeed it is. And then we'd like to hear from Alejandra and then from Kurt.
And we have about
Couple minutes.
just a couple minutes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. My feeling is that it is important to read the moment, and the fact that we have to be each one in our homes so much more, and to really go into this inner space, like he was saying right before the Reverend, that we need to go inside and really revalue, really need to see our life as it is. And also my feeling is that trying to grab onto our old values, even the religion, even if we are connecting with others within our religion, there is a limitation to that because we're enclosing ourselves. And this time, what it's showing us is our oneness. So my feeling is that it's important to become like a container in which we are looking at what is happening, looking at how our consciousness is shifting in this moment, rather than try to limit how we want things to be, because definitely life is changing and it's trying to change us. So I feel that that's important, to go a little bit with the flow. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. And Kurt?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I was just going to say again that when we were with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in November, and he had listened to this discussion, he said, you know, this is really what it's saying, is that the wind is at the back of goodness. It's not that the wind is in our face anymore. I think many of us as sacred activists and workers in all manner of good works, we've always felt that we're swimming upstream. The wind's in our face. Actually, what the science is telling us now is that the wind is at our back. And it's interesting that that revolution started in 2015, just a decade or so before this pandemic. So there's no doubt that this global event is an opportunity. So then the question is, how we seize that. And to go back to what Safira and others said, groups make decisions. This is a big discovery in science. So as we now, multiply this message of what cooperation looks like instead of competition, nature will select that. So we really need to be aware that the examples that we set, the work that we're doing is not with the wind in front of us, it's at the wind at our backs. And so we can really be hopeful that just like the virus can multiply, we can also multiply this message, which is really about adaptation, good of the whole, and as you just said, the world that can work for everyone.
Thank you, Kurt.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful, inspiring, and hopeful summary of where we are and the possibility that lies before us. And as Seifu was saying, we have to move through the darkness and go through this collective alchemy, and then we can birth this new future for humanity. Thank you so much.
And it's a very important piece that all of you have spoken to. And I also want to name the place that probably most, if not all of us on this Zoom and YouTube Live are feeling safe in our homes, are feeling advantaged in many ways and privileged to be safe. And there's a lot of people around the world that don't have that same safety. And so the prayer, the inner work, that is our work in these places where we're sheltered in home and we have food and we have a roof over our head and we're feeling safe. It's an important time, as it already has been spoken to, of conscious inward practice to really deepen in that. And that's part of our action, right? But it's also a time, if you feel so moved, to help those in need. And there's a lot of places. The migrant workers in India, we know that Sister Lucy Kurian, who was here with us a few weeks ago, her ashram, her community, Maher, is feeding themselves, but they're also taking food from the stocks of their own pantries and feeding the migrant workers who are trying to make it back home. Karambu Rengera in Kenya has her community there, and she is feeding the children and the ones in need, while the locusts are also coming and threatening the crops. In Latin America, we know, especially in Mexico, I think there's a lot going on there of need. And places around the world, South Africa, I saw lines of people just lined up in the communities there in the townships, waiting for 14, 15 hours for food, just to be able to feed themselves. So as we hold these beautiful places that we're going and we're being birthed into in this new civilization that hopefully we will move into, and that's my hope and my aspiration. I just want to name the level of suffering that people are going through that is not part of my life in the same way. And all the essential workers in that way who are working, and we can do so much, both in our prayer life and in our outer service of donations, or however we can help support those communities that are in so need. So as we move from this space, and we're going to move into our breakout time together into another Zoom platform, just take that prayer that we've been holding in the silence of our heart as a community here online into that space and bring it into the conversation, into the breakout rooms, into your engagement with one another.